call this meeting of February 8th to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome. We have the agenda before us. Are there any additions, corrections, deletions of the agenda as it is in print? Concerns of trustees, one, Purple Heart.
Communications. Number 4, please. Thank you.
Okay, so I have 2 additions. Anything else? So the first thing we have is the Sheriff's Report. Captain Carver.
Evening.
Evening.
Monthly report before you, 911 calls for service, a slight increase from last year. 72 crashes, 9 injury crashes, so significant increases there. Really just looking at the weather we had this month is going to be the positive factor of that. We didn't, because the last snow event we didn't see a huge number of crashes like I thought we might have, but certainly the weather contributed to higher crashes this past month. 97 alarms, 137 traffic stops, so a little increase from last year, and 13 citations, 59 arrests, and 669 vacation and security checks. Detectives report 7 cases assigned, 1 breaking and entering and 1 theft case were closed. Let's see the charts. Just about everything's up from last year, which we had anticipated. It's kind of slowed down a little bit last year, so we're seeing those numbers more than I would expect. Any questions about it?
None? Thank you.
Thank you.
That takes us to unfinished business.
Thank you. Item number 1 is a resolution to amend Resolution 22-004 to change the board meeting on Tuesday, November 8th, 2022 to Wednesday, November 9th, as the general election is being held on November 8th.
So moved. Second. It's been moved and seconded. Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mrs. Harless?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
And that's the end of unfinished.
Thank you. That takes us to new business. You're up again.
Thank you. Item number 1 is a resolution by the Plain Township Board of Trustees to establish a capital equipment fund from the monies of the police district fund to be deposited into that fund, not exceeding $400,000, will not exceed the 10 years, and to authorize the fiscal officer to transfer that amount.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion.
Just to clarify, prior capital accounts were already set up because of the new UAN system, or is this a new?
I did have a new capital account for body-worn cameras.
Okay.
So that's what, I have the one for vehicles, but this one is setting up the one for a body-worn camera, which in the next maybe 3-4 years we'll be purchasing. And then,
Anything else? Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mrs. Harless?
yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
And then new business 1A is for the Board of Trustees to authorize the Plain Township Fiscal Officer to request an additional amended certificate from the Stark County Auditor for that $200,000.
So moved. Second. It's been moved and seconded. Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mrs. Harless?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Thank you. Item number 2 is what you had talked about, Mr. Hawes. We already have an existing capital fund for the purchase of police vehicles and equipment, and this is a resolution to move additional funding of $250,000 into that fund.
So moved. Second. It's been moved and seconded. Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mrs. Harless?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Thank you. A huge thank you to the fiscal team for putting that together so quickly, and that's the end of new business.
And speaking of fiscal officer's report.
Thank you. Fiscal Officer number 1 is a resolution to provide for current expenses and other expenditures of Plain Township Board of Trustees during the fiscal year ending December 31, 2021. The sums B and the same are hereby set aside and appropriated for the several purposes for which expenditures are to be made during said fiscal year as follows.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mrs. Harless?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Fiscal Officer number 2 is a resolution to authorize the payment of pending warrants in the amount of $281,039.28.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mrs. Harless?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Fiscal Officer number 3 is a resolution to authorize payment of regular payroll in an amount not to exceed $250,000.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mrs. Harless?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Fiscal Officer number 4 is a resolution to authorize payment for the following medical claims.
So moved. Second. It's been moved and seconded. Discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mrs. Harless?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Fiscal Officer number 5 is a resolution to authorize the following reallocations.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mrs. Harless?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Fiscal Officer number 6, a resolution to authorize a refund as follows for overpayments of EMS as requested by Ohio Village.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mrs. Harless?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
And that concludes the fiscal officer
Thanks,
report.
Tom. That takes us back to the administrator.
Thank you. I have a resolution before the Board of Trustees to approve the renewal and authorize payment for the Stark County Sheriff's Office for the Plain Township portion, which is half of the Leads Online Power Plus service package.
So moved.
Second. It's been moved and seconded. Discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mrs. Harless?
Yes.
And that's the end of the administrator report.
Thank you. That takes us to Fire Chief Schallenberger.
Thank you. Item number 1 is our monthly report. The only thing I'll note there is the call volume is kind of equalized, and then we did do a graph on how the stations are a little more equal now in run volume, just because of our population growth more in the northeast section here. I think 4 of the ones have become a little busier, so it's kind of balancing out now between all the stations.
That's pretty slick to see
Yeah.
that way.
Yeah, I like that. Thank you.
Nice. Any questions? Excellent.
Thank you. Item number 2 is a resolution by Plain Township Board of Trustees to authorize the increase in reasonable rate charges for the use of ambulance and emergency services in pursuit of the attached rate structure, effective March 1st, 2022.
So moved. Second's been moved and seconded. Discussion?
Yeah, that's just my clunky language there. I'd like to clean that up, Tom, if we could ride through at the end.
Yeah.
It should just simply say services pursuant to the attached rate structure. That's my,
Oh, okay.
yeah, it sounds clunky the way I did it.
And then obviously this rate structure is something that we look at periodically. We don't try to be the highest, but we don't want to be the lowest either. But I think based on what we see, it's fair.
Yeah, and we haven't changed rates since 2015.
Yes.
And that is lower than what they proposed as the average in our
Some
area.
of them were significantly high.
Yeah, the only one we kept kind of true with other people is the mileage, because our fuel costs keep going up and the wear and tear of vehicles and the cost of vehicles. So we're trying to balance that out. And then obviously that only affects non-residents in true fashion, because residents would only pay whatever their insurance
Solid.
pays.
Yeah. Anything else? Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mrs. Harless?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Okay, item number 3 is a resolution by Plain Township Board of Trustees to authorize payment for medical supplies to Boundary Medical not to exceed $6,000.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mrs. Harless?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Item number 4 is a resolution by Plain Township Board of Trustees to authorize purchase and payment for repairs and equipment through Truck Sales Incorporated not to exceed $5,000.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mrs. Harless?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Item number 5 is a resolution to authorize purchase and payment for uniform allowance items from Galls Incorporated not to exceed $5,000.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mrs. Harless?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Item number 6 is a resolution by Plain Township Board of Trustees to allow for a uniform allowance for Levingston's uniforms not to exceed $10,000 be taken from the following fund.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mrs. Harless?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Item number 7 is a resolution to authorize equipment and repairs from Redmond's Auto Parts not to exceed $3,500.
So moved.
Second. It's been moved and seconded. Discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mrs. Harless?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Item number 8 is a resolution for installation of labor and doors, or payment for Magic Garage Door not to exceed $7,500, and that'd be for Station 4 on Market Avenue.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mrs. Harless?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Number 9 is authorization from the Plain Township Board of Trustees to approve payment to Stryker Pro Care Services for a maintenance contract for a 5-year term for heart monitors, Lucas machines, and AEDs not to exceed $12,737.25 annually.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mrs. Harless?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
And number 10 is a resolution by Plain Township Board of Trustees to accept the resignation of Scott Kelly as the Plain Township Fire Inspector effective February 18th at $1,600.
So moved.
Second. It's been moved and seconded. Discussion?
Just to compliment him on, his service while he's been here, because clearly, it was a change, he had 2 old long-term guys here, and then to go down to nothing and backfill, he certainly stepped in, and it was nice to be able to lean into that experience. I know personally, as compared to say, and this is nothing against the folks who filled that prior, but it was always nice in working with Scott, getting the heads up on some of the business conversations that he may heard, just compare notes, that way we can keep atop of it. So wish him the best moving forward. Chuck, I know we've had that conversation, you'll have your hands full in the interim figuring out what the next steps are, and covering those bases. But
Yeah, Scott's been a good employee, good attendance, everything, so I hate to see him leave, and obviously a good resource when he came in. But those resources, the private sector really looks for. Not a lot of people with those experience out there.
Well, and that's the other thing. When you're good at your job, and you've demonstrated you're good at your job, and there are other people outside that are observing that they're looking at, seeing who maybe they can recruit, because they see it's a good fit. So,
Yeah.
I think in his case, that's certainly a sign that, was a quality employee for us, and we wish him the best of luck.
I agree. They definitely realized what they were getting, and they definitely swooped in, and we're going to miss them. Hopefully we can fill in a spot with someone just as good. They'll be well missed.
Anything else? Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
yes.
Mrs. Harless?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
And that concludes
Thanks,
fire
Chuck.
department. Thank you.
Takes us to road, JP.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Road item number 1 is the monthly report. As you can imagine, the plowing and salting, top 4 quarters there in January, with a few mailbox repairs.
Relatively quiet month.
Can I ask what ice jam is?
What's that?
What
That's
ice jam?
where like somebody's discharging a sump pump, and it just runs continuous. And if it gets along the concrete gutter, forms an ice jam, so we have to go out and salt it.
Thank you.
We have quite a few of those. We're getting a list together to fix those in the spring, the ones that have been ongoing.
You obviously know we're doing something right when there are people from other communities that call and want to know what we can do to help them.
Yeah, we had several calls.
Crazy or not.
Yeah. Okay, next.
Yep, road number 2 is be it hereby resolved by the Plain Township Board of Trustees to authorize purchase and payment to Macintosh Oil for cost not to exceed $35,000.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mrs. Harless?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Okay, road number 3, be it hereby resolved by the Plain Township Board of Trustees to authorize purchase and payment to K-Tech Specialty Coatings for BD Severe Liquid De-Icer not to exceed $7,000.
So moved. Second. It's been moved and seconded. Discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mrs. Harless?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Okay, last but not least, is just a winter storm land in total. Some staggering numbers there as far as salt, man hours, BD gallons used, and fuel consumption over that 2-day storm. And kind of a approximate cost of what it is.
That's good stuff to know.
Yep.
Good stuff to have, especially for transparency, because what we spend on getting our roads black versus our neighboring
Oh, absolutely.
community that has potentially heated streets is speculated.
Yeah.
I think they're spending every bit
Oh,
as much, if not more so.
You hate to look at that number, but, I mean, we did
It
get
is what it
compliments
is.
on black streets, so.
And it's not like either one of those two storms in and of themselves
No.
weren't something difficult to deal with, but we had them back to back.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you get to a point where you had a little bit of thaw, and then it froze, so now you have a tough time finding a spot to put the snow for the second one.
Yeah.
And then, you know, the unknowns with that second wave,
Ice.
with the freezing rain and then the ice and then the snow, that's extremely difficult to make those decisions of when do you want to start, what do you want to start on first, how do you want to approach this, you know, and, you know, keeping it safe for our employees.
And again, I mean,
I think you did an amazing job, as did they.
yeah, as a big shout out to the crew, Eric and Rob Parks. You know, no accidents, nothing like that, no trucks total, no wrecks, so knock on wood, and yeah, we're not ready for the next one, so no snow dance, Scott.
The public still just needs to realize parking ban means nothing on the road because we will ticket and tow them. I've noticed trash cans weren't as bad this last time, but some of these allotments where folks set them out on the road. Not in my trustee hat, but if I had an unmarked truck and I had a plow going through there, I'd give them a gentle reminder why they don't go on the road. Nice work.
Thank you, I appreciate it. That
Okay.
concludes road.
Thanks. That takes us to zoning.
Thank you, sir. Item number 1 is the monthly report.
Any questions? Okay, number 2.
Item number 2 is a resolution to initiate application to the Plain Township Zoning Commission for zoning resolution text amendment 560-22 short-term rent.
So moved. Second. Been moved and seconded. Discussion?
The text deals with short-term rentals. And they're more commonly referred to as Airbnbs, VRBOs. They are residential rentals of 30 days or less. The text proposes to set standards to protect the integrity of residential neighborhoods by registering and certification of the short-term rentals within the township.
Anything else? Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yeah.
Mrs. Harless?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
And that's all for zoning.
Thanks, Tom. Takes us to Parks, Rob?
Thank you. Our one really, agenda item is the monthly report.
Okay, thanks. That takes us to communications.
I'll read the first one. Congratulations to the snow plowers and administration of Plain Township. Plain Township has done a great job of keeping this heavy snow off of Chaucer Drive and other roads in the township. Ralph Ward, 2910 Chaucer Drive, northeast.
Chaucer's the wide one, too.
Where the old median should have been.
Yeah, yeah. Communications number 2.
Yes, that's a thank you from Joanne Jeffries, thanking the Parks team for clearing the snow off the walking path at Alino Park, saying it's always nice to be out in the fresh air, and she also appreciates being able to walk at the Diamond Indoor Center on inclement days. And ends it with, I love being a Plain Township resident, which is awesome.
And we love her being in Plain Township.
Yes. And then item number 3 is a communication from Grace Baptist Church to the road department. Thank you to your fine staff and dedicated staff on these difficult wintry days to help get our community around safely. We appreciate the way you serve our community. And then they had sent a free pizza, and that's why it says enjoy lunch together.
Oh, nice. Very nice.
Yeah, very nice. Thank you to Pastor Dave.
Very nice. Next, Brooke.
Mine was, never mind, mine was a repeat of number 1. I didn't know he sent out to everybody.
Yeah, because I think he sent those individually.
Yeah.
See, mine come through by text and I had to go out.
Yeah.
I'm like, what in the heck is, I thought it was spam at first.
Yeah.
And then I saw the
Yeah, he
context.
sent them individually, because I sent him back a little note. Okay. Let's see. That takes us to public speaks. If there's anybody in the audience that wishes to address the board during public speaks, please state your name and address for the board.
I think you guys are all doing a hell of a job.
All right.
And that would be Grant Gills.
Thank you, Grant.
Yeah, thanks. And then concerns of trustee Scott, Purple Heart.
So, just another update. It was the end of December, the beginning of January. I took it upon just to get the money raised to finish the rest of this. Well, was able, I think we're a little over 10 grand in that account, 8,500 of it is the actual memorial cost, but continued to follow with a couple folks, and we actually received from the American Legion department headquarters, their charities group, another $1,500 today. So with some of the planning over there, and site layout, this should help, even with additional buffer there. So just want to give a thanks to the American Legion Department of Ohio Charities on that contribution. Tom, I'll get you the check once I've documented it, or provided them with a handwritten thank you
Okay.
for it.
Okay, perfect. Anything else? So we do have a need for an executive session, be it hereby resolved by the Plain Township Board of Trustees, Stark County, Ohio, to adjourn to executive session at 6:23 on February 8th, as authorized under Ohio Revised Code 121.22G for the purpose of the consideration of 2A, the purchase of real, personal, tangible, or intangible property. 3, a conference with the law director or other retained counsel concerning pending or imminent court action. 4, preparing for, conducting, or reviewing negotiations or bargaining sessions with public employees. And 7A, do I have to read that?
Do not.
Okay. It is extremely wordy, but just the short version is it defines very specific chapters within the Ohio Revised Code for the purpose of economic development.
And I would just add, John, call it 7A and B.
Okay. All right, 7A. So for the purpose of the record, we will note that that will be 7A and 7B. And I will so move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion, roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mrs. Harless?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.